Memphis, July 1969. The comeback tour was supposed to be thunder and glitter, yet in front of 12,000 fans at the Mid-South Coliseum, a single figure brought the room to a standstill. A soldier's widow stood silently in the crowd. What Elvis Presley said next left the entire arena in tears. The July air outside the Mid-South Coliseum was thick, almost humming, as if Memphis itself knew something electric was about to happen. Streetlights glowed against the dusk, casting a faint shimmer on rows of Cadillacs parked bumper to bumper. Vendors shouted, their hands full of souvenir programs and buttons stamped with the king's face. Inside, ushers hustled to guide people to seats, though every aisle was already spilling over with anxious fans. July. Elvis Presley was back in Memphis, home ground after a decade of film sets, sound stages, and exile from the stage. It had been less than a year since his televised '68 comeback special reintroduced him to the world as something more than Hollywood gloss. This night mattered. The Mid-South Coliseum, with 12,000 fans crammed into its oval bowl, pulsed like the beating heart of the city. The lights dimmed. A cheer surged like thunder. And in the darkness you could almost feel people clutching their neighbor's arm. Then spotlight. Elvis strode out in black leather, the same suit that had reignited his crown. He gripped the mic, tipped his head, and the opening chords of blue suede shoes rattled the room. People screamed until their throats burned. Homemade banners, "Welcome home, Elvis," waved in the rafters. Colonel Tom Parker, ever watchful, leaned from backstage with a cigar in hand, already calculating the reviews, the ticket sales, the headlines. To Parker this was a coronation. To Memphis it was salvation. Song followed song, all shook up. "Don't Be Cruel," "Love Me Tender." Fans swayed, clapped, wept, reached their arms as though touching Elvis's shadow might heal something in them. Every flick of his wrist drew waves of hysteria. The crowd was not just an audience. It was a living, breathing organism, surging with each note. And yet, even in that tidal wave of sound, one island of stillness began to draw notice. Near the front rows, an older woman stood upright, hands folded around something clutched to her chest. Unlike the others, she didn't clap, didn't mouth lyrics, didn't scream herself hoarse. Her stillness cut against the frenzy. At first no one noticed, just another face in the crowd, but then an usher whispered to a neighbor, and soon a small radius of awareness formed around her. What was she holding? Why did she not move? Even Elvis, between verses, glanced down and caught her eye. For a fraction of a second, the man who could command 12,000 with a flicker of a smile seemed caught off guard. The lights swept across the Coliseum, the sound roared, but in that one small pocket of silence, a question was forming, one that no one yet dared to ask out loud. Who was this woman? And why did silence fall around her? The stage lights may have dimmed, but the weight on Elvis's shoulders only grew heavier. Fame, once a blessing, became a He walked through corridors of applause, yet felt echoes of silence follow him back to empty hotel rooms. By 1971, the glare of success had begun to blur into loneliness. Crowds adored him, screaming for the man in the jeweled jumpsuit. But behind the curtain, he wrestled with exhaustion, expectation, and the shadow of his own legend. Every handshake, every smile, carried an invisible price. He longed for peace, yet peace ran from him. Each performance demanded not just his voice, but pieces of his soul, and night after night he gave it. Still, there were moments, fleeting, fragile, when music restored him. In the quiet of rehearsals, His voice soared pure, reminding him of the boy from Tupelo who first dreamed of gospel harmony. It was in those glimpses that he remembered. Greatness was not in the crown, but in the courage to carry it. The king's burden was heavy, yet through it, his humanity shone brighter than any rhinestone. Las Vegas, the showroom glittered with chandeliers, the audience restless with anticipation. When Elvis stepped onto the stage, the crowd roared like thunder, yet amid the frenzy, a single voice called out, a woman asking for prayer. For a moment, time froze. Elvis lowered his microphone, his eyes softening as silence swept the room. Here was not a king commanding subjects, but a man confronted with raw faith. He asked the band to pause. The lights dimmed, and with reverence he bowed his head. Together, thousands joined in stillness. No music, no movement, only the fragile hush of shared belief. In that instant, fame and burden dissolved. There was no distance between star and spectator, only souls bound in a moment of grace. When the song resumed, it carried more than melody. It carried healing. For Elvis, it was a reminder, beyond the spotlight, the true gift of music was not glory, but connection. That night, the king gave more than performance, he gave presence, and the crowd left forever changed. By 1973, Elvis stood before the world in Aloha, beamed live by satellite. His voice crossed oceans, uniting millions. It was triumph on a scale no artist had touched before, yet inside, the weight of perfection pressed harder. Each note demanded strength. His body struggled to get. The pills meant to help him rest became chains of dependence. Behind the dazzling jumpsuits, fatigue etched lines across his face. The dream was alive, but it consumed him slowly. Still, on stage, he rose like a flame. Audiences never saw the tremors in his hands or the loneliness in his eyes. They only saw the king, radiant and unstoppable, and he gave them everything, even as it cost him peace. Greatness rarely comes without sacrifice. For Elvis, the dream he carried lit up the world, but it also burned him. Yet within the fire, he kept singing, proving that the truest legacy isn't living forever, but giving all you have while you can. Graceland was his palace, yet also his prison. Within its gates, Elvis sought refuge from the storm of fame. Family gathered, friends laughed, and music filled the rooms. But when the laughter faded, the silence grew louder. By 1975, the man who once conquered stages wrestled with battles unseen. The world adored the king, yet inside those walls, he fought to hold himself together. Pills numbed the pain, but also blurred the joy. His body weakened, though his heart still longed for music's saving grace. He would walk the halls at night, humming gospel hymns, searching for peace in echoes of faith. The boy from Tupelo still lived inside him, aching for simplicity, for freedom from the weight of legend. To the outside world, Graceland was a fortress of glory, but for Elvis, it was fragile shelter, one built not of stone, but of hope. And though the crown grew heavier, he carried it still, because music demanded nothing less. Las Vegas, December nights. The showroom lights blazed, and a weary king stepped onto the stage. His body was frail, his voice uncertain. Yet when the orchestra struck the first notes, something eternal awoke. The crowd, thousands strong, rose in thunderous applause. They knew this might be one of the last times. Every cheer was not just celebration, it was farewell. Elvis gripped the mic, sweat rolling, eyes shining with gratitude. He poured what strength remained into the music. My Way became his confession. Every lyric, a piece of his soul. Silence fell as he whispered the final line, and the arena erupted. Some wept, others prayed, All new history was closing its curtain. That night, no mask remained, just a man, broken yet defiant, standing before his people one last time. His gift was complete, his legacy sealed. August 16, 1977, news broke. Elvis, across America. Radios fell silent. Fans gathered at gates of Graceland. Candles flickering through the Memphis night. Millions mourned. Yet the music did not die. For the widow who once stood in silence. For the soldier lost in war. For every soul he touched. His words still live. They carried comfort beyond his lifetime. Crowds remembered not just the king, but the man who knelt beside grief and lifted it with song. Elvis's legacy is more than gold records. It is empathy, given freely. Under blinding light, he showed the world that compassion can echo louder than fame, and love outlasts applause. So when you hear his voice today, ask yourself, what gift can you leave behind that will outlive the spotlight? That question is his true encore. Elvis's compassion still speaks across decades. If this story moved you, share it with someone who carries grief or hope in their heart. Let them hear how one voice turned pain into healing, because sometimes the smallest act of kindness, shared forward, can change history all over again.